Our programming and live broadcast include
news and interviews from Israel and the world. Walter's World.
Thanks for joining me. I am Walter Bingham. Welcome to part 2 of Walter's World. More than any other country, Israel has dozens of charitable organizations that keep the nation going. There are soup kitchens, dental clinics, interest-free loan societies, clothing centers, and besides the official Magen David Adom, the Red Shield of David medical aid and ambulance service, there are other voluntary societies that operate in the medical field like Zaka and Hatzolah. You name it, we've got it in multiples. There is, however, only one non-profit legal defense organization for Jews, Honenu, be they soldiers or civilians, who find themselves in legal entanglements due to having to defend themselves against Arab aggression, like, for instance, Shai Dromi, the Israeli farmer who, afraid for his life, shot a Bedouin thief who came onto his ranch. He was charged with manslaughter, jailed, and finally acquitted thanks to Honenu, translated from Psalm 123, "Favor us, Hashem, favor us, for we are fully sated with contempt." Honenu's help covers several aspects. A telephone hotline is manned 24 hours a day, receiving reports and dispatching immediate legal advice and counsel, which in many cases avoids a trial. Staff members as well as lawyers are available day and night to provide immediate help and legal representation. The Critical Cases Department helps those who are indicted and on trial, and Honenu also provides legal assistance and economic aid to the families of those who are in prison, and they act as lobbyists in the Knesset and government to promote the interests of such prisoners and secure their release. At a recent meeting to promote their fundraising activities, we learned the details of a great number of cases that were eventually satisfactorily resolved through the efforts of Honenu. But there are also administrative detention or restraining orders originating from the British Mandate. Adina Kudnitsky explains that they empower military commanders in Judea and Samaria to detain a person for a maximum of 6 months under, quote, reasonable basis for believing that the security of the region or public security necessitates. It may be extended for an additional 6 months, but does not specify a maximum cumulative period, and there is no evidence, no trial, no judicial process, and no formal right of appeal. Therefore, such orders are problematic, to say the least, because they are not intended to punish a person for a proven offense, but to prevent the commission of an act liable to endanger public safety. Living in Judea and Samaria, these men and women literally stand guard over Israel's heartland. Their presence is an obstacle to creating a Palestinian-controlled terror state. The detention and expulsion orders are used to intimidate, frustrate, and hamper Jewish patriots. Most significantly, according to Louis-René Beres, renowned professor of international law, quote, the point of these orders has been to quash anti-government dissent in various West Bank, that's Judea and Samaria's, Jewish communities. Administrative detainees are not told the reason for their detention or the allegations made against them. Although they are brought before a judge to approve the detention order, most of the material submitted by the prosecution is classified and not shown to the detainees or their attorney. Since the detainees do not know the evidence against them, they are unable to refute it. They also do not know when they will be released. Although the maximum period of administrative detention is 6 months, it can be renewed indefinitely. Administrative detention or expulsion orders aim to achieve political results under the guise of national security interests. Honenu states that administrative detention violates the right to liberty and the right to due process, since the detainee is incarcerated or restrained for a prolonged period without charge or trial and on the basis of secret, untested evidence. Such a case is that of Akiva HaCohen, who is not allowed to reside at his home in Yitzhar in the Shomron or elsewhere outside the so-called Green Line, and who, with his wife and 5 children, now lives temporarily in cramped conditions in Jerusalem. As he is under house arrest and not permitted to communicate by phone or email, I went to visit him. You can hear by the background noise that I am in fact in the home of Akiva HaCohen. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
How are you feeling?
A mix of feelings, actually. From one side, I'm happy that I'm in house arrest for being suspected for saving communities from destruction in Eretz Yisrael.
You mean you're happy that you're in house arrest rather than in prison?
No, the fact that I'm accused of helping Jews is a kind of pride.
So it's a badge of honor?
Sort of, yes. From the other side, obviously, it's very hard and complicated to be in our situation.
We've already said that you're not allowed to communicate with the outside world except with your visitors.
Correct.
What got you into this situation?
It started 11, 12 years ago when I was about 16 years old. Back then it was the beginning of the second Intifada. I saw that there was shootings on the roads when the Arabs were doing pretty much whatever they wanted to do. I was back then in yeshiva. I felt that Hashem's looking for people to do different things besides for only sitting and learning Torah. But I felt that I'm supposed to do something besides for that. So that's when I joined the Hilltops at age 16.
So you were what they call a hilltop youth?
Yes, back then. And we founded one hilltop after the other until age 18. My feeling was that I was finally giving something to God that He was looking for, something that I was giving for His nation, for His land, the special land of Israel that He gave the Israeli nation. At age 18, I got married, and together with my wife, we founded another hilltop, all by ourselves. And ever since then, we've been at that hilltop, next to the settlement named Yitzhar. That's where we live.
Is that legal?
Actually, almost nothing that was built in the past 15 years that is called completely legal, because the defense minister needs to sign on a specific document that for political reasons he's not been signing for the past 15 years. So you can't be 100% legal if you build a new house outside the borders of the settlements from 15 years ago.
The settlement of Yitzhar, that is legal.
The settlement of Yitzhar itself in the borders that were put in the maps 15 years ago is, but whatever was built outside these borders is not. So we're not 100% legal, but that's for political reasons.
And what do you do there?
I have 25 acres of land. Within that I have about 3 acres of a vineyard. And besides for that, I have a flour mill. I used to grow wheat, but now I buy the wheat and grind it into whole wheat flour, package it, and we sell it around Israel. We've had this factory for about 5 years now.
So you know all about the origin of that grain, and therefore it is glatt kosher.
Yes, of course. I buy the grain here in Israel. I pick specific grains that I like.
Well, now that you are not living in your own home and near your business, how are you running it?
First of all, it's very complicated. But with God's help, I have 4 workers who produce the flour there, and I have a worker who marks it in the market. I have a truck 3 times a week, and he distributes the flour all around, and that's how I try to run things. Now that I have no option to communicate with my workers, that makes it even more complicated. I have my marketer coming here a few times a week, and we sit here half a day to plan together what he needs to do. A few days ago, I got a special order from court that I'm allowed to speak to my marketer on phone, only to him, to his specific number, so that helps me a bit.
So what got you into this situation? What got you into trouble? What did you do wrong?
I think I only did right things. Let's start from that. But this is not the first time I'm in similar situations. About 6.5 years ago, there was a disengagement plan from the Jews in Gaza Strip. Back then, the people who led the fight against the government's plan was a group called the Yesha Council. The Yesha Council, so-called the leadership.
Yesha, that is an acronym for Yehuda and Shomron and Gaza.
Right, Judea and Samaria and Gaza Strip. They failed. They didn't succeed in stopping the government from ruining thousands of homes and ripping thousands of families from their homes. It was obvious that a new leadership needs to come up and fight against the government and these political corrupt things that they're doing. Also back then I was arrested for a month and a half during the disengagement plan for resisting there against the government's plan. But since then I got more involved in such things, and because of my involvement in that, the Shin Bet, who's in charge of the so-called security in Israel behind the scenes, decided that I'm an important man for them. And for the past 6 years since then, I've been expelled from my home 4 times. More than half of the time in the 6 years that passed, I haven't been in my home.
Can you tell me about those different times? Can you give me any details?
One time there was a destruction of a house in Hebron, and I was arrested there for being part of the resistance, and I was kicked out of my home in Judea and Samaria. I was in jail for 3 weeks, and then afterwards I was kicked out of my home for another 9 months till the end of the trial.
What was the result of the trial?
The result of the trial was that most of the things that were claimed against me were erased, and there were a few things that I was convicted. After that, for another 3 times, we were kicked out, my wife and I, from our home. Once for 4 months, a second time for 9 months, and a third time now for 12 months by administrative orders. An administrative order is a piece of paper that's given to you. Usually it's 5 in the morning. You have a policeman knocking on your door, giving you a piece of paper that says you have to leave your home. You have to leave Judea and Samaria for the next period of time. It doesn't say anything at all on that piece of paper besides for the fact, for a matter of security of the area, you need to leave. That's all it says there. Without a trial, without court. That's one of the cases that I'm here for now in Jerusalem.
But then there is another matter in which you're involved.
Yes. The administrative order that I said tells me that I'm not allowed to go into Judea and Samaria, but I'm allowed to be in every place else in Israel. But now I'm in house arrest for a different reason. A month and a half ago, I was arrested together with 7 or 8 other guys for so-called spying on the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, within the Green Line. Now say, who's the enemy that I'm spying for? Maybe the Syria forces, the Egyptian forces. What they claimed is that as part of the resistance against the evacuation of homes on the hilltops, we organized a war room that gathered information about what forces, when they're planning to evacuate places, that we put out people that were looking around on roads looking for police forces that were going to evacuate. We gathered the information and told people when they're planning to evacuate so that they could go to resist.
That is what they're claiming.
In the past 10 years, I've been many, many times in court. I could tell you a few cases that I had. One case was about 7 years ago. I was part in that time of the defense team in my settlement, Yitzhar. We got on my beeper an immediate emergency call that an Arab was stealing a herd of sheep from inside the settlement and to come immediately. The immediate response team went down and saw that it's correct that an Arab was stealing sheep from the settlement towards his village. We ran after him, so he ran away without the sheep, and we brought the sheep back. What we didn't know was that on the hilltops surrounding the valley that we took the sheep back through, there were policemen with the video cameras looking down at us. And they ran after us and arrested us for stealing sheep from an Arab with guns, armed robbery. We were arrested for 10 days, and afterwards we were for a few days in house arrest.
Why was the police on the hilltops? What were they doing there?
That time we had the same question. After a few days we understood what the story was, and it's amazing what happened there. There was a policeman that was in charge of the intelligence of the area, and he decided he wants to arrest us any way he can. And all of what I'm saying is backed by court. He called up an Arab that lived in the village and told him to claim that a specific herd of sheep were his. He took the Arab in the police vehicle into our settlement, let the Arab out in the entrance where the sheep were, taped the Arab calling the sheep, and then let the Arab take them back to the village and claiming that those sheep were his. He knew that we'd run after the Arab, and then he arrested us for armed robbery. We got till the Supreme Court here in Israel, and we stayed in arrest for 10 days for this. Later, we sued the police for this arrest, and we won 50,000 shekel from the police on this case.
What happened to that policeman? Was he convicted of false evidence?
He wasn't convicted, but they understood that he had a major problem, so they moved him to a different district in the police. The case I said before that I was kicked out of my home for 9 months till the end of the trial was an amazing thing because I saw it happening before my eyes. I was part of a group that came to resist a evacuation of a home in Hebron, And there were youth there who threw stones at the policemen that were there. I wasn't one of them, but there were people. The police ran after those youth, but all those youth succeeded to run away. The policeman came back, and I stood there because I knew I didn't do anything. So I stood there innocently on the side. Then they saw that they didn't catch the youth, so they said, okay, so we'll take him instead. So they took me, arrested me, and I saw them talking with the investigator and planning how to claim that I was the one who threw the stones. That's what they did. They wrote down that they saw me throwing stones. The judge believed them, threw me out from my home till the end of the trial. Part of the time I was house arrest. Afterwards I was restricted of going into Judea and Samaria. At the end of the trial, I wasn't convicted of these things because it was all a lie. But the easiest thing for the judge is first to restrict somebody from going to his house and then afterward do the trial. And that's the same case right now. First of all, they say, be in house arrest. Then afterwards we'll see what's going on. And the trial could be for 2 years. And we paid lawyers, not me, but the organization that helps us. Honenu paid many lawyers till now in the 2.5 weeks I was arrested. First of all, the judge says, okay, you're arrested. Then afterwards he says, let's do the trial.
You live a long way from Hebron. Why did you go there?
Because the Israeli system is on a landslide for the past 25-30 years. I feel that since the Yom Kippur War, the Israeli system gets afraid to win. Since the Yom Kippur War, they don't know how to win. That's why since then we see the left side of the political map in Israel becoming more and more strong. The only way to win is the so-called peace process.
I asked you why you went to Hebron.
I'll explain. So even people who used to be called the right wing, like Begin or Shamir or later on Bibi, become part of that peace process, the left side of the map. And there's nobody on the other side. Nobody's standing behind the right-wing side and saying the land of Israel is for the Jewish nation. No peace process, no Palestinians, and no Egyptians. First of all, the land of Israel is for the Jews. Then we could talk. That's why even if there's an evacuation in a place which is very far from me, there have to be people who resist there against it. Because otherwise, we'll find Israel way down until it will be erased completely from its land.
So throughout all those various periods, you've been helped by Honenu.
Yes, every time I've been brought to court, doesn't matter which kind of court it was, if it was a regular court or was the army court with the administrative orders, I'm always backed by Honenu. In every case, I have a lawyer coming. By the time I get to the police station, usually he's already on the phone with the police officers there, with the investigators. When I get to court, he's there, and they take care of it all. Till the process of the trial, everything's taken care of by them. In our case itself, the case I'm arrested now, the so-called spy case, I calculated that they probably spent close to 100,000 shekel already.
Let me get this right. The spy case is where you're accused that you are collecting information from the army, both from inside and outside the army camp, in order to inform others to resist the army's actions in settlements.
You got it right.
Akiva HaCohen, as a serious activist and committed to the land of Israel, how do you see the future?
Well, there's the close future and the far future. In the close future, the first thing that has to be done is say the fact that I said before, that the land of Israel is for the people of Israel only. That's the first point. Only after the Gentiles hear that, they'll understand the point. Once we have the land of Israel ours, then we could decide which Gentiles really respect us and will be able to take them back here, and which Gentiles are against us and then they won't be able to be here. Longer future than that is that we're the light of the nations. That's what it says in our Torah. Eventually we'll have the temple, and we're hoping to have all the Gentiles, not only the Jewish nation, to come and sacrifice to God, to the only God, the Jewish God, there in our temple. Till then, the first point has to be that everybody needs to understand that the land of Israel is only promised for the Jewish nation. That's the start point.
There are several million of Arabs here. Of course, numbers are disputed. What do we do with them?
I think that first of all, they need to hear that saying. Nobody's willing to say that the land of Israel is ours. People are afraid to say that. People are embarrassed to say that maybe. I don't know why. But I assume that once the Arabs see a serious person standing against them, they'll understand themselves that it's not worth the fight. if it will become time to fight against us, so we'll fight if we have to fight.
And finally, as your name indicates, you are a Kohen, which is from the priestly caste, for want of another word. And you have great interest in the rebuilding of the temple because you have a lot of duties to do there.
Yes, besides for the fact that I don't know what will happen to my home and my vineyard because I'm going to be only in the temple all the time because I won't want to leave it. But yes, obviously I do want to finally get the temple.
Akiva HaCohen, thank you very much for having been so frank, and may all your troubles end.
Thank you very much.
It is a great mitzvah to assist and support Honenu. It is also a great mitzvah to donate even from Maaser Tzedakah money. There is no charity greater than this. There is no cry that pierces the heavens like the cry of the prisoner. Help us to help them, to stay alive and to remain free.